Mtazamaji, karibu katika kipindi hiki maalum kinachoangazia yaliyojiri katika warsha ya siku 226 ya utafiti na sera iliyoandaliwa na Repoa, wabobezi katika tafiti za kisera, iliyofanyika huko visiwani Zanzibar kwa mara ya kwanza katika hoteli ya Golden Tulip Airport Zanzibar. Mwaka huu warsha hii iliandaliwa na Repoa kwa ushirikiano na CRDB Bank pamoja na Wizara ya Biashara na Maendeleo ya Viwanda, Serikali ya Mapinduzi ya Zanzibar. Kauli mbiu ya mwaka huu ya warsha ya utafiti na sera ni kuhuisha biashara na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi kwa ukuaji shindani katika uchumi wa kijani. Warsha hii ya 26 ya utafiti wa sera ilihudhuriwa na kufunguliwa na Rais wa Serikali ya Mapinduzi ya Zanzibar na Mwenyekiti wa Baraza la Mapinduzi Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi. Pia ilihudhuriwa na Spika wa Baraza la Wawakilishi Mheshimiwa Zuberi Ali Maulid, Balozi wa Denmark hapa nchini Tanzania Mette Nørgaard, Balozi wa ujumbe wa Umoja wa Ulaya, Mkurugenzi Mkuu wa CRDB Abdulmajid Musa Nsekela, Mkurugenzi Mtendaji wa Repoa Dr. Donald Mari, ambaye ndiye alikuwa mwenyeji kiongozi wa warsha hiyo ya 26 ya utafiti na sera, pamoja na viongozi wengine wengi kutoka Serikali ya Mapinduzi ya Zanzibar na pia kutoka kwenye taasisi nyingine nyingi ambazo ni wadau wakubwa wa tafiti na sera za maendeleo hapa nchini. Aidha, katika ufunguzi wa warsha hii ya 26 ya utafiti na sera, viongozi wakuu waliohudhuria walipata wasaa wa kuongea na wadau wa utafiti na kutoa maoni yao, kueleza wanachokifanya katika taasisi zao katika makabiliano ya mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, kutoa ufafanuzi wa kauli mbiu ya mwaka huu na kuelezea jinsi mabadiliko ya tabia nchi yalivyoweza kuathiri kilimo, uzalishaji na biashara kwa ujumla, na pia waliweza kuonesha ukubwa wa tatizo lilipofikia kwa ujumla na nini mchango wao katika kukabiliana na hali hiyo.
First, I'm thankful to Almighty God for enabling us to meet here at the Golden Tulip today for this important gathering of policymakers, development partners, researchers, and private sectors and financial institutions to mark the 26th concurrencies of Repoa's annual research workshop, which this year being jointly organized by Ministry of Trade and Industrial Development of Zanzibar and Sera Bank Limited. The Ministry of Trade and Industrial Development and Repoa has been working on research, value addition, and capacity development on key aspects of trade policy, include agriculture and value chain, with focus on seaweed, spices, and horticulture value chain, as well as quality management to enhance the competitiveness and diversification of our products. That was our journey started in 2017.
Since the commencement of the operations in 1995, Repoa have continued to generate new knowledge in different areas of policy, contributed to policy research capacity building, and have actively promoted the use of research-based evidence in reviewing and preparing various policies and strategies. These have been possible due to the quality and integrity of our research, various efforts to disseminate findings through publications and dialogue forums, and by participating in various government-led technical teams and committees to review and develop policies and strategies. We promise to continue to cooperate with the government and other development stakeholders in pursuit of our national development targets, and to supporting efforts to steer the economy back to its positive and high growth path, and more importantly, towards inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Today's dialogue is guided by the theme, Adapting Trade to Climate Change for Competitive Green Growth in Tanzania. The choice of this theme was inspired by three factors. First, national aspirations as reflected in the respective development blueprints, whose thrust is to strengthen our economies by making them competitive. We recognize that all countries are competing for markets, capital, and raw materials for the benefits of their respective economies and for creating jobs and improving welfare of their people. It is therefore important to assess our production systems, linkages between productive sectors, and the opportunities for integration into the global economy and trade systems. Second, like for any other country, Tanzania's export trade potentials can be realized if trade is diversified and competitive. While Michael Porter's 3 dimensions of competitiveness, that is cost leadership, differentiation, and segmentation, are still relevant in today's market environment, recent evolutions in technology and innovations have created new demands for producers and exporters to remain competitive by enabling mass customizations, traceability, and lowering transaction costs. The analysis of market needs in terms of quality and standards, policy and institutional drivers of efficiency and productivity are therefore valid in today's world. Third, climate change and its impacts are likely to be a significant barrier to trade growth, economic diversification, and social progress. With dependence on exports from climate-sensitive sectors, developing countries confront relatively higher trade costs, and these costs may rise because the same countries have the least capacity to diversify the structures of their economies in response to climate change impacts.
We all know that dramatic climate change is already a fact in Tanzania, affecting livelihood and biodiversity. A recent report from Oxford Economics have highlighted that higher food prices have become a key concern in East Africa, as the entire region is struggling with dry weather conditions and is heading towards a 5th consecutive failed rainy season in the final quarter of this year. Local developments have a large bearing on the price of food in Tanzania. About 2/3 of the population is directly or indirectly engaged in agriculture and food production, which is increasingly impacted by climate change. I mention these few facts to underline that this workshop, as my good friends from CLB just said, adapting trade to climate change for competitive green growth, comes at a very important point in time. It provides us with a platform to dialogue and explore possible paths to the future we want, a green, secure, fair, and sustainable future. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges of fostering sustainable development and addressing climate change are interrelated and mutually reinforcing. At the global level, our collective endeavors are guided by the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. Following the 15th Conference of the Parties in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, convened in Copenhagen, my country, 2009, developed countries committed to a collective goal of mobilizing $100 billion per year by 2020 for climate action in developing countries. As for Denmark, we aim to mobilize at least 1% of the promised $100 billion by 2023, somewhat above our weight in the international economy. And 60% of our climate aid will help the most vulnerable nations adapt to climate change. Other countries are also doing their part towards the same goal, but regrettably, we are collectively behind the target. We are relieved to see that a new analysis by OECD indicates that it's likely we reach this target of $100 million a year by 2023. As for Tanzania, I would like to commend the government for its national climate change response strategy from June 2021, taking action to protect and restore nature and ecosystems such as forests, wetlands, and ocean. The private sector should follow suit. It's time to think climate-smart solutions and climate-smart ways of doing business. As Tanzania aspires to become a private sector-driven industrial and more competitive nation by 2025, it's important to travel the path with opportunities that leads to a sustainable and green future.
Mabadiliko ya tabia nchi yamekuwepo na ni topic kubwa nchini. It's one of the global debates today. Lakini vile vile ni mjadala mkubwa katika nchi yetu ya Tanzania. Na vile vile tunafahamu muda ni sasa wa kukabiliana nayo, kwa sababu tusipofanya sasa hivi tutapata changamoto zaidi hapo baadaye. Mheshimiwa Rais, kama ilivyo kwa dunia nzima, nchi yetu ya Tanzania vile vile imepata changamoto za mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Athari za mabadiliko ya tabia nchi yanaathiri sekta mbalimbali kibiashara pamoja na sekta za kilimo, na hivyo ni muhimu kama wadau kujadiliana na kutafuta suluhisho la kutoa tatizo hilo. Kwa naipongeza sana Repoa kwa leo. Athari hizi za mabadiliko ya nchi zinaweza kupunguza tija, kuongeza madhara katika biashara, kusababisha usumbufu wa ugavi, lakini vile vile kukosekana mitaji kwa ajili ya shughuli za maendeleo. Mheshimiwa Rais, pamoja na kujadili mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, inakadiriwa kinahitajika kiasi kilichopungua trilioni 7 kila mwaka kuweka miundombinu inayotokana na madhara ya tabia nchi. Hiki ni kiasi kikubwa sana kupatikana na hakijaweza kutokezea. Mheshimiwa Rais, benki yetu ya CRDB tunajivunia kufika mwaka 2019 tulikuwa the first bank to be accredited by Green Climate kwenye middle class kwa kuweza kusimamia miradi yenye thamani ya dola milioni 250. Lakini pamoja na hayo, nimesema madhara ya tabia nchi ni makubwa, yanahitaji resource, na sisi kama benki tuna wajibu, au sekta ya fedha ni mmoja wa mdau muhimu katika uchumi huu. Hivyo basi, baada ya kupata usaili huo, benki yetu ilikuja na mradi au program maalum ambayo inaangalia upande wa chakula. Mradi huu mzima unagharimu dola milioni 200, lakini tunajivunia kwamba tumepata dola milioni 100 kutoka Green Climate Fund, na benki ya CRDB itaweka dola milioni 100. Lakini milioni 200 hizi inalenga kuwafikia Watanzania kwa Tanzania bara na Tanzania na visiwani moja kwa moja wasiopungua milioni 1.2. Lakini tunafahamu watakaofaidika na mradi huo, indirect beneficiaries, hawatapungua milioni 4.9. Mpaka mradi huu unaisha utawafikia Watanzania milioni 6.2. Na uzuri wa mradi huu unakuja na mambo matatu. Moja, utapata mikopo yenye riba nafuu kwa wakulima. Lakini pili, tumetenga fedha milioni 10 ndani ya mradi huo, dola milioni 10 ambazo zinalenga kujenga uwezo wa wakulima na kuwapa nyenzo za kisasa. Tatu, tumetenga dola milioni 10 katika mradi huo lenye malengo ya kukabiliana na changamoto za tabia nchi kwa kuwakatia bima ili mazao yakipata changamoto wasipoteze mitaji yao. Na 4, tumetenga milioni 10 ndani ya mradi huo ambazo zitasaidia kuwadhamini ili wapate mikopo, kwa sababu tunafahamu ni moja ya changamoto katika eneo.
Developing countries like Tanzania face a double challenge. On the one hand, they suffer from the effects of climate change, and on the other hand, their products must gradually comply with the new regulations to be competitive on the European market or even simply to access it. Agriculture and food processing is central to this theme because production is affected by the consequences of climate change, such as extreme weather phenomena, but also because the standards and regulations on food products in Europe are becoming stricter. This is particularly relevant for Tanzania, where this sector is essential for the national economy. As a concrete example, the European Union has adopted the so-called farm-to-fork policy, aiming at reducing the environmental impact of agriculture and improving the quality of food. For instance, by reducing by 50% the use and risk of chemical pesticide by 2030 and reducing by 50% the use of more hazardous pesticide by 2030. But also, the policy aims at substantially increasing organic farming, the products of which are very demanded in the European Union market and are usually sold to a price which is on average 30% higher than no-organic products. So, coming back to Tanzania, the question is, what are we doing to tackle all that? The third National 5-Year Development Plan provides clear objectives for agriculture, such as enhancing the value chains thanks to food processing and encourage innovation in the agricultural sector to increase production and export. In order to adapt to the consequences of climate change, it is necessary, among other things, to increase the productivity of strategic crops, to reduce the dependency on rains for irrigation, enhance storage facilities, and facilitate the transport of products to their destination. The European Union and Tanzania, together with the Member States, are working to achieve these objectives. The AgriConnect program is helping small farmers to improve the quality and quantity of their production, including here in Zanzibar. The plant health project contributes to enhance food safety for export and domestic trade. The Markup 2 program will help the private sector in reporting on the sustainability performance to support export competitiveness of Tanzanian and East African small and medium enterprises for key commodities.
Hatimaye, ulifika ule wakati uliokuwa ukisubiriwa kwa hamu na washiriki wa warsha hii ya 26 ya utafiti na sera, kumsikiliza Rais wa Serikali ya Mapinduzi ya Zanzibar na Mwenyekiti wa Baraza la Mapinduzi Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, kuzungumza na washiriki na baadaye kuifungua warsha rasmi.
I've been informed that Repoa has partnered with CRDB to organize this workshop because of their shared common objective and interest in supporting sustainable trade, private sector development, and economic growth. This is an exemplary partnership that needs to be emulated. Together, we must encourage more institutions to forge this kind of constructive partnership, to be able to do things that have great impact on the development of our communities and nation as a whole. I extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the Ministry of Trade and Industrial Development, together with Repoa and CRDB management, for holding this workshop here in Zanzibar and inviting me to be the guest of honor. Distinguished guests and participants, it is gratifying to know that Repoa has been working with various ministries and agencies here in Zanzibar on research, capacity building, and policy development. I commend Repoa for supporting the government of Zanzibar in its quest to accelerate the transformation of its economy by modernizing its key drivers of economic growth, including the blue economy, tourism, manufacturing, and agriculture. I believe that Repoa, CRD Bank, and other stakeholders who are present here today will continue to support the efforts of the government of Zanzibar and that of the Union government in promoting economic growth. In fact, our collective efforts in conducting research are vital to the success of our resolve to promote the dissemination and application of knowledge that contributes to improving the lives of people and boost the economic growth of our nation. I'm impressed by the theme of this year's workshop that says adapting trade to climate change for competitive green growth in Tanzania. This theme is very much in line with the development agenda of our two governments. As you all know, promoting trade and investment has been high in the list of priorities of our two governments. On the other hand, the government of the United Republic of Tanzania is implementing the third five-year development plan, whose main thrust is building a competitive industrial economy and human development. One of the priority areas of this plan is to promote investment and trade. It is obvious, therefore, that the thrust of this workshop relates very well with the strategic plans that have been formulated by our two governments. Climate change alters and reduces agricultural yields and productive capacity of economy of any nation. We are already witnessing this reality here in Tanzania, where adverse weather is reducing agricultural output, the amount of fish catches, production of seaweed, and also there has been frequent mass deaths of livestock due to prolonged dry seasons. On the other hand, international trade affects greenhouse emission in different ways. As we know, trade generates emission through production, transportation, and distribution of traded goods and services. Trade also increases emissions through exploitation of natural resources such as minerals, oil, timber, and industrial goods that are high energy intensive in their production. Taking into account of these linkages between the development of trade and its impact on climate change, we need to act collectively to be able to shift the way we conduct trade within and between our countries. Ladies and gentlemen, with these remarks, it is now my honor to declare that the 26th Annual Research Workshop of Repoa is officially opened. I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Warsha ilianza rasmi kwa washiriki kupata mawasilisho ya ripoti mbalimbali kutoka kwa watafiti tofauti kulingana na mada, na baadaye mijadala mbalimbali iliendelea kuchagiza na kufanya kila mshiriki kuwa na ari na kila kilichokuwa kinajadiliwa mahali hapo.
And one other area that we're seeing as well in terms of a disconnect between the private sector and the journey that we want to be on in terms of climate is understanding what's actually happening within these various sectors. Just as an example, I think a month ago, Tanzania breweries launched a Smart Agri initiative whereby they were sharing information in terms of how they've started contract farming and they've implemented, I believe it's SDG 13, with regards to how to approach agri from a smart climate perspective.
My question to the panelists, and having heard from the keynote address, aren't we giving too much attention to the access to finance? And because listening from Madam CEO Roundtable, I guess there is a big problem on the awareness, but at the same time, it is not clear whether the issue is lack of awareness or actually lack of finance to carry out some mitigation programs.
The research that we did, we found that our farmers are experiencing a number of challenges. Apart from the crops insurance regulation document that was issued by the government, we found that very few insurance companies, they offer crops insurance. So we motivated the paper to GCF, and the GCF will be providing a grant totaling $10 million to assist our smallholder farmers engage on agriculture activities in a way that if they get any challenges, they get any losses, this money will be able to reimburse them.
I remember one day I went to the court to witness. It was the case between a farmer and the insurance company. This farmer was given money, and he claimed that there was extreme heavy rainfall and strong wind. So he was supposed to show evidence, what happened and why, and so on. But this farmer, as previous speaker said, these smallholder farmers, they don't have any source of return. They only depend on what they expect from their farm, and they already had the loan. So in the court, they needed to have evidence. When we talk about climate change, we need to have evidence. We need to have evidence. And currently in our country, like any other developing country, and Africa in general, we don't have enough data. So how is this green growth going to capacitate the issue of data?
Recently, we did a research on the economic productivity of the what you call them, productive units of the government of Zanzibar, and we actually looked into the possibility of agriculture being the mainstream of bringing food into our little island. So on the other hand, we looked at the issue that from the previous census that we had about 56% of the population are youths. Now, how do we put these youths to their fullest use? Because we need productive youth, not just youth in numbers, but we need productive youth. And then when we're talking of smart agriculture, we are thinking of, first of all, we need access to these farmers need access to clean, reliable energy so that they can be able to go into agribusiness in the new way. I mean, in a way that is helpful to them as families and helpful to the country at large.
When we are promoting climate smart agriculture and at the same time we are pushing hard these farmers to adopt the good agricultural policies, GAP, and are these two concepts aligning, converging, or are they digressing? And perhaps one practical question I had was that tunapowashauri wakulima watumie mbolea, that's a good agricultural policy, but a good agricultural practice, but at the same time, is it climate smart agriculture? Kwamba udongo utachoka na maybe itakuwa expensive to maintain. Sasa wakati huo tukiwa tuna promote productivity ili wakulima wetu waweze kuchagiza job creation kwa ajili ya vijana na kadhalika. Sasa at the same time tunahitaji kutengeneza mazao ambayo ni organic, ambayo maana yake ni kwamba huwezi kuproduce at mass. Well, there is always tension there, but I wanted to understand whether these two concepts actually are aligned or not. The good agricultural practices vis-a-vis climate smart agriculture.
Aidha, warsha hii ya 26 ya utafiti na sera iliwezesha utiaji saini hati ya makubaliano ya kushirikiana baina ya shirika la Repoa na shirika la Pasgar linalofanya shughuli zake nchini Kenya, na hivi ndivyo ilivyokuwa.
Sambamba na warsha hii tumesaini makubaliano sisi pamoja na taasisi ya Pasgar ambayo ni shirika lisilo la kiserikali linaloshirikisha nchi nyingi za Afrika katika tafiti za kijamii na swala zima la utawala kwa maana ya governance. Na lengo la makubaliano haya ni kutanua sasa wigo wa tafiti pamoja na kujenga uwezo wa tafiti na watunga sera ndani ya Afrika katika kuangalia namna ya kuwezesha wazalishaji pamoja na wananchi kuweza kuimarisha na kuongeza tija katika uzalishaji katika sekta mbalimbali. Tunafahamu kwamba tunashindana katika dunia, tunashindana kupata masoko, tunashindana kupata mitaji, lakini pia tunakabiliana na changamoto nyingi sana ikiwemo haya ya tabia nchi. Sasa haya yote yanapaswa kufanyiwa tafiti, lakini tunapaswa pia kuongezea uwezo wadau wetu na kujifunza kutokana na wengine ambao wamefanikiwa katika nchi za Afrika, lakini nje ya Afrika pia. Sasa kuna namna kubadilishana uzoefu, ni pamoja na kufanya tafiti za pamoja ndani ya Tanzania lakini nje ya Tanzania.
Makubaliano tuliyosaini leo na Repoa ni hatua ya kwanza ya kufikisha dira ya Pasgar. Pasgar ni asasi ya Kiafrika, Pan-African. Ina lengo na dira ya kutaka kuboresha sera, kuweka uwezo, kujenga uwezo wa Afrika kwa ujumla wake ndani ya Afrika. Kuungana na Repoa ni hatua muhimu sana kwa upande wetu. Na tunaona kwa matarajio yetu, dira yetu inarandana vizuri na dira ya Repoa na kile ambacho Repoa inafanya kwa Tanzania. kwa maana ya kujenga uwezo wa watafiti, kujenga uwezo wa watunga sera, kufanya tafiti ambazo zinaweza kujibu na kutoa elekezi kwenye masuala mbalimbali ya kijamii na ya kiuchumi ambayo yanagubika nchi zetu.
Mara baada ya ripoti za tafiti mbalimbali na mijadala mirefu iliyoendelea kwenye kila kumbi mahali hapo, ulifika ule wakati wa kutafakari yaliyojadiliwa na kutoa ushauri nini kifanyike kufikia malengo na njia gani zifuatwe siku za mbeleni katika maeneo yatakayoibukia kwa utafiti zaidi.
The first issue which came up is arising from the very topic of the workshop, which is quite loaded: trade, climate change, technology, competitiveness. But this is for a purpose, because all through we had that interaction coming up again and again. So the message is you cannot just pick one item and address it in isolation without clearly recognizing technically the interaction between the various components. So that interaction between trade, issues of environment, climate change, issues of technology, issues of competitiveness, issues of value addition, industrialization are a package. So when we do our research, it is useful to remember that it may not be the best way out to take one issue at a time without acknowledging how it's interacting with the other issues. The second issue which runs across is the trade is dynamic. The kind of trade we knew those days, the kind of trade which is taking place now, changes have taken place. And it's very important to understand what trade wants now, what the patterns are, what products are required out there. A small example, do you remember how we produce, whether it is mangoes, whether it is onions, whether it is oranges? We don't know how to sell them to the world market. But some sharp guys from Kenya, they know, and they cross the border, they buy them in a very rough way, they go back, package them in a way which is wanted by the market out there, because they know. How come our colleagues know the market out there and we don't know the market out there? So knowledge about trade, what is required, and therefore prepare ourselves to meet those requirements of trade